Additional support comes from locally inspired, nationally recognized Dickie Brennan Steakhouse, serving dinner daily and lunch on Fridays. Home of the Chateaubriand for Two, Michael Haney oysters, and the house filet with cream spinach, Pontalba potatoes, flash fried oysters, and Béarnaise sauce. More information can be found at dickiebrennansteakhouse.com.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us once again on Appetite for Life. Even the mention of the mysterious spirit absinthe causes usually rational people to react strangely. Tonight we will explain the facts and maybe even dispel myths about absinthe with Ted Breaux, a New Orleanian who literally brought absinthe back to America and most of Europe. Chef Nathan Richard, a most talented man in the kitchen, will enlighten us with stories of his South Louisiana cooking style. Then we will visit one of the most high-profile and beloved bartenders in New Orleans, Chris Hanna, of French 75 Bar in Arnaud's restaurant. Sit back and relax. All of that is coming your way right now on Appetite for Life. Welcome back. Tim McNally here, Appetite for Life. Thank you for joining us. Native New Orleanian in exile, Ted Breaux from Birmingham, Alabama. Ted, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, Tim. Good to see you.
Good to see you, my friend, even though it is via Skype. But you were just in town a few days ago, so we had a chance to catch up.
Yeah, in and out, like the tide.
Ted, let's destroy a few myths right off the bat because there's a lot of myths. You've been intimately involved with absinthe since the early 1990s when you were almost single-handedly responsible for bringing this spirit back to the world. What was that story, Ted? How did that happen?
Well, working as a research scientist back in New Orleans, late 1993, early 94, I became interested in absinthe. It just boggled me because how could a spirit have been so famous and yet there be so much dubious information about it? I found it very frustrating, and that just spawned a huge research project that I carried till the present day.
And when you determined to distill the first batch of Lucid absinthe, which is the absinthe that you're responsible for, congratulations on that, as we love it. You took that to the federal government for licensing approval, and they looked at you like you were like off your rocker.
Well, that started, Tim, because I was the first person to actually analyze samples of vintage absinthes from 100 years ago using modern science, found nothing wrong with them. I started distilling absinthe professionally in January 2004. And then for the U.S., yeah, we created Lucid. I created this product in the hopes of breaking the U.S. ban, which we eventually did in 2007, March 5th, 2007, National Absinthe Day. So so thanks to that, we can now use absinthe, in famous cocktail books like the Savoy Cocktail Book, 1930. There are over 100 cocktails in the book that call for absinthe. So now we can use real, absinthe again, which is great for the whole world and trend of mixology.
Let's get to the Sazerac, because that probably, as far as we are concerned, Ted, the most famous cocktail using absinthe. Would you mind making us one?
The earliest use of the term cocktail that we know of happens back during the presidency of Thomas Jefferson, 10 years before the Battle of New Orleans. And it was described as any spirit, bitter, sugar, and water. And really what this was a way to make medicine palatable back in those days. And back in those days, I mean, botanical bitters, everyone took botanical bitters. It was the panacea of the 19th century. Unlike today, we take medicines when we're ill back in those days, people took medicines, botanical medicines, because they felt it would prevent them from becoming sick. And back before 1906, the Harrison Act, you had famous botanical bitters like Angostura bitters and even this antique full bottle of Peychaud's bitters being sold under the premise that it would help improve digestion and be a tonic to overall health.
Ted, I've never seen a bottle of bitters that big.
This is an antique Peychaud's bottle of bitters. It's never been opened.
Wow. Wow.
And the thing is, if you read old labels and advertisements for Peychaud's and Angostura, and various botanical bitters, what one will find is the universal prescription for botanical bitters is 1 teaspoonful 3 times a day. And what's interesting about that is for example, in the old Peychaud's ad, it says 1 teaspoonful, which an apothecary would call 1 dram. And basically, a teaspoonful, you wouldn't take it straight. What one would do, according to the directions on the label, is mix it with brandy, sherry, Madeira, something like that. You always put it in something to drink it and something else. And basically, we can do is, so we do that. And of course, another 19th century medicine, absinthe. And we're going to pour in our old apothecary's measure, we're going to pour about 1 dram of absinthe, which is about a teaspoonful, like so.
That's a beginning.
That's the beginning. Now, you've seen people prepare Sazerac cocktails. They use a couple of glasses and flare, but really, that's not necessary. Let me show you the way I do it. It's completely different than any other way you've seen. Basically, I like a coupe. I take a small coupe glass, a stem glass, and the first thing I'll do is I'll cut a piece of lemon peel. You can use any citrus fruit. One can use orange, one can use grapefruit even, anything like that, but basically agitate that lemon peel, just get some of the oils to be expressed, and I'll drop it right there in the coupe. And then what I'll do is I'll take, and we'll use a dram of Peychaud's bitters. I'm going to pour that right into the cocktail glass. We're going to use 1 dram of absinthe. In this case, I'm using Lucid Absinthe Superior. One wants an absinthe that is traditional, which is going to be dry and quite herbaceous. And then what I'm going to do is use our base spirit. Now, original specification for the cocktail calls for any spirit. And just like one can use any of several bitters, one can use Peychaud's, one can use Angostura, one can use a combination of the two. One can use Dale de Groff's pimento bitters, one can use Tempus Fugit's Abbott's bitters. It's great, one can play around. Rye whiskey is the most common spirit used in a Sazerac cocktail. Of course, Sazerac was the name of a very famous brandy back in the day. And one can also use a nice, like Pierre Ferrand 1840, a nice old style cognac, just like Sazerac was. One can even use an aged rum agricole. There's no right or wrong. What I'm going to do is use a favorite of my colleague, Milo Rodriguez, and I'm going to pour what was called in the old days a wine glass full, which is 2 ounces. And in this case, I'm going to use a 90 proof bourbon. Now, pitfalls in making this cocktail. I'll tell you what, I've had some bad Sazeracs because they were made with just a couple of drops of bitters. And one thing they did not contain enough of was syrup. Now, in this case, most people use rich simple syrup, and it just takes a dash. What I'm using here is a replica of Jerry Thomas's old gum syrup, which is 2/3 rich simple syrup, which is 2 part sugar to 1 part water, and 1/3 gum Arabic syrup. And I'm going to pour about that much. This is not nearly as sweet as simple syrup, and it has a great viscosity modifier. It really, really improves the mouthfeel. And once I get everything into the mixing glass, then what I'm going to do is take just a spoonful of ice here, just enough to get everything to where I can stir it, get it ice cold. You know, back in those days, a lot of spirits like whiskeys were about 100 proof. Today, most spirits like whiskeys are around 80 proof. So when I said the original cocktail called for any spirit, bitter, sugar, and water, we don't have to worry about the water. It's already present. We just want to stir it enough to get it ice cold. And then once I do that, I'm going to take that ice cold Sazerac and I'm going to pour it directly into my coupe that's got the lemon peel already in it. And voila, there we have it.
Ted, that is as easy a Sazerac recipe as I've ever seen. You're going to tell me how it tastes. I didn't get one.
Well, I can tell you this. I make them this way all the time, and the differences you'll notice here, it's very simple, as the original cocktail was intended to be. One can use any variations. There's no right or wrong, but one needs to make sure to use enough absinthe and enough bitters to really get those aromatics in the spirit, and that's why a good, bold whiskey works well. And enough simple syrup just to balance the flavor, and the dash of lemon peel just gives it a hint of crispness and freshness on the nose and in the mouth. This is really delicious.
I'll bet it is. I may come to Birmingham and get one of those. Ted, Lucid, L-U-C-I-D, is pretty much available everywhere, isn't it?
All 50 states. We took that old distillery with all that equipment from the 1880s, and I tell people it was like starting up Henry Ford's old Model T assembly line and putting Model Ts together. We had to use that 130-year-old equipment to put Lucid Absinthe in all 50 states, and man, I'll tell you, that took a lot of work. Hard work.
Ted Breaux, native New Orleanian, now in exile in Birmingham, Alabama, making absinthe and Sazeracs. He hasn't stopped. Ted, thank you for your time today. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for the eye-opener, Tim.
Oh, good for you. Tim McNally here. Appetite for Life. We're going to be right back. Welcome back. Tim McNally, Appetite for Life. Got one for you tonight. Oh, you're going to love this. A very dear friend of mine and quite a talented man. Nathan Richard's with us. Chef, welcome.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
You just are going to go on a new gig here. You're on your way over to Cavan, uptown.
Yeah, you know, I thought it was a good idea.
I bet it is a good idea. I bet you and Roland LeBlanc agreed that it was a great idea.
Yeah, you know, I didn't have a choice, you know, but no, I'm super excited, man. You know, Ro has been a good friend of mine for quite some time, and unfortunately, he went to Vanderbilt, and I went to E.D. White. So, you know, we don't see eye to eye when it comes to football season. Yeah, we hold it. Oh no, we hold it, and we take that personally. But you know, very excited, man, to be a part of such a beautiful building. You know, have you been inside?
I have.
Of course you have. I mean, you go everywhere. But
I think it's safe to say that most of our viewers have not been there, so you're going to be able to break them in.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you know, you walk in through the front door, and you know, you have that old Victorian-style home, 1800s, man. Just, you know, Ro has done it right, brought it back to what it should have been.
Well, it's a beautiful restaurant, and they're lucky to have you down there. So, Chef, South Louisiana kid.
Yep.
Where?
Thibodeau.
Thibodeau.
Yep.
And Cajun cuisine is your passion, but you're all over the map on this thing.
Yeah, you know,
you like a lot of different
things. Yeah, Cajun is you know, my blood. It's the heart and soul of what I do. You know, I grew up on the coattails of my father cooking, and that's what it's all about. You know, but I had a great career. Still have a great career. Opportunities have come and gone, and I had chances to live in Italy, the Caribbean, and I love taking what founded so much Cajun Creole cuisine, but representing everyone, you know, that makes it part, you know, from Vietnamese. You know, you have a huge population Vietnamese fishermen who, thank God, they bring in wonderful fish, crab meat, crawfish even, to the front door, and it's, you know, and that's to me the soul of Cajun cooking or Creole, because without them, you wouldn't have any of this great product.
Well, this holistic approach is pretty modern. And I mean, Cajun cuisine was regularly defined, depending on what kind of Cajun you were. You were a Bayou Cajun or a Prairie Cajun type of thing. But and we never had it in New Orleans. It went on for the longest time that Cajun cooking wasn't a deal here.
Right.
But people like you, Donald Link, are bringing to us what real Cajun cooking is. But you've stretched it out. You've gone the distance with other cultures.
Yeah, I mean, to me, again, if you look at the whole history of Cajun, the Cajuns, they came from Canada. You know, they were exiled from Canada. We were owned by Spanish. We were owned by the French. We were, you know, so the culture of the Cajuns it's made of different nationalities. You know, then you were sent down to Louisiana, where practically their hopes were that the mosquitoes, the malagno, would kill us. You know, and separate the herd. You know, but I guess we showed them, and that's how, you know, we lived off the land. You know, that's how we started eating alligators, frogs, turtles. You know, I mean,
because they were there.
That's what you had.
Yeah,
that's what you survived, and thank God they did, because that's some good eats. You know, some of my favorite things to cook with. So yeah, you know, I mean, you look at the whole nationality of Cajun cooking. You know, it's not supposed to be just spice. It's not supposed to be, you know, hot like people think. Oh, we're just going to throw some cayenne pepper into it, and that's going to be called Cajun.
Oh, it drives me crazy. Whenever you travel, somebody will say, "Let's go to a Cajun restaurant." I go like, "No, I don't think so."
No. Oh, look, they serve Tabasco there. You know, I mean, that doesn't mean anything anymore. You know, I mean, I think Tabasco is probably the second recognized symbol next to Coca-Cola nowadays. Yeah. You know, but it's layered with flavor. It's the love of it. You know, I mean, you look at Cajun. It's to me, it's all one pot cooking. You know, it has heavy influence with rice. It's meat, potatoes, rice, and not so much said potatoes, but meaning that's all it is. You know, it's one pot cooking.
That one pot idea, Chef, that's what separates it from Creole, doesn't it?
Well, and of course, you know, many other, you know, I mean, Creole is more influenced by the Africans, the Creoles or the Gullahs or the Geechee. I mean, even if you look at Southern cooking, is the same thing. Like in Charleston, where I lived for a little bit, where they're separated with the Geechee or the Gullah cooking. That came from different parts of Africa, and makes it all up, you know. And you look at tomatoes, to me, is another big difference. You know, I mean, it's, you know, the first question I ask when I eat jambalaya in New Orleans, is it red or is it brown?
Good question. Good question.
You know, and it has a huge difference. You know what I mean? So yeah, you know, that's a big part of the influence, the difference between Cajun and Creole cooking. In my opinion.
What's on your mind right now? Because you haven't yet influenced the menu yet.
No, you know, right now Cavan is running great right now. You know, Ben has done a great job with the place, and I kind of want to keep it that way until I get my gears up and running and rolling. Of course, I have to build a smokehouse. You know, that goes without saying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's you. It's you.
You know,
you leave smokehouses all over the place.
Yeah, why not? You know.
So, Chef, where is Cavan? Because people are going to want to follow your progress.
Yeah, you know, I hope so, and we'd love to have them there. You know, magazine, its own magazine, 3607 magazine. If you're familiar with the Harry's Ace Hardware.
Yeah, that's always a landmark up there.
And then there's across the street from there is the Reading for the Blind radio station as well.
All right.
That after, I believe, 6 o'clock, you can use that parking in the park there. And there's, you know, of course, right on the street parking and all that.
Oh, good. And then Foucher is the cross structure.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And you're taking it slow. You're going to be sure that are we going to see some old chef recipes in there?
Yeah, I think so. You know, I love one thing. You know, I love about being a chef is learning the history of food and not recreating the food, but making it better. So, for instance, you know, you might see a shrimp mold on there. You know, that's what was done in the 80s. But you know what? You come into a house that was built in a century where dough glacé or these shrimp molds and all that were very popular at the time. So I think it's very fitting for a dish like that to be part of Cavan. Plus, nowadays we call it charcuterie.
Yes, exactly. we had to rename it somehow.
Yeah.
Chef Nathan Richard, Cavan is where he's going to be living from now on, and you're going to be wise to follow that progress. Chef, thanks so much.
Thank you, man, for having me.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Man.
Tim McNally right here, Appetite for Life. We're going to be right back. Welcome back. Appetite for Life. Tim McNally here. We hope you're doing well this evening. I am, because I'm with an old friend of mine, Chris Hanna, French 75 at Arnaud's Restaurant. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here. Good to see you also.
Chris, let's talk about French 75. Let's talk about the room before we get to the drink.
Okay.
The history here.
Well, it was a private dining room, male only. It was just another private dining room for the restaurant. Obviously, when Germaine Wells ran the restaurant, she made it a men's only grill, where she was the only lady allowed.
When it converted to a bar, was it always called French 75?
No, it was called Arnaud's Grill Room. We kept the name Grill Room, which signified men only, but it was a bar and lounge for the restaurant, Arnaud's Restaurant.
When did the name change to French 75?
In 2001 and 2, they decided they needed to change the name from Arnaud's Bar to something like not Arnaud's, because it was like Arnaud's down the whole block.
Sure.
They wanted something new, and they designed it after French Safari 1920s, and they wanted to name it after Count Arnaud's favorite drink, the French 75.
Was it Count Arnaud's favorite drink?
It was. He obviously even went to jail for drinking cognac and champagne during Prohibition. Several news reports of that actually framed in the back. But yeah, he enjoyed the French 75, and he even made his own cocktail with a twist on the champagne cocktail called the Ambrosia.
What's in the Ambrosia?
Ambrosia, it's a good one. There's Cointreau, there's a couple of vermouths, sweet and dry vermouths, champagne, and a little orange juice.
How did you get into the bar end of this? What was your interest always with cocktails growing up?
My interest in all of this is probably that I'm an old soul, which is why I moved to New Orleans, because I like jazz. Louis Armstrong was always my hero. So I moved down here. I was going to go to school at university down here. Applied into Arnaud's, walked in this bar, and it was just beautiful. And I just realized after working here a couple of years that in New Orleans, the restaurant industry is a career. So 13 years later, still running the bar.
And we're glad you're here, buddy.
Thank you.
That differentiates us from a lot of markets, though, doesn't it? This is not a profession. This is a stepping stone.
Right. Yeah, in a lot of other markets, wherever I've bartended before moving to New Orleans, it was definitely a stepping stone or a bus stop to whatever career you thought you were going to go in. But here in New Orleans, you know, it's this is part of the whole city is running a bar, being a character. Like I said before, Count Arnaud and several other people. There's so many big names in our industry, and you know them all. So.
Well, and you're part of the party every night.
That's true.
How much fun is that?
I've always thought of that. You know, it's like you look at those old movies, the guy in the tuxedo, white jacket, you know, Bogart, you know, Casablanca, and you're always part of the party. You know, so if you can't always get into the party, you might as well be working.
Well, you're doing the best job in the room. Let's talk about the drink itself, the French 75. This drink goes back to into the early 1900s, doesn't it?
Yeah, World War I.
And it's named?
The French 75 was a cannon, French 75 millimeter. It was used by the Americans and the French. And we believe the Allied fighter pilots in the Lafayette Escadrille, which were the French and the Americans, that they went on their raids. And when they came back safely on their raids across, you know, enemy ground, that they would cheers cognac and champagne when they got back to camp. And they cheers to the French 75 because of its self-recoiling system. It was the fastest cannon at that time, where you don't have to walk around and put the gunpowder in. It was already like, it was the fastest, like, automatic.
The next shot was ready to go.
It was the first one.
Wow.
And that's why the Americans chose it and the French chose it, and many believe it actually won World War I. So they would come back and cheers to the French 75. They brought the concoction to Paris. You know, I've read a lot of these autobiographies of the pilots who were in the Lafayette Escadrille, like Raoul Lufberry, and you know, they didn't really go to the Louvre when they went to Paris. They actually went to the American Quarter, and they drank and hung out. And their main home base was the Chatham House Hotel, which is one block on the same block as Harry's. So the drink traveled
Harry's American bar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Traveled one block over. The English bartenders were always well known for writing down their drinks and having the specs in the back. And they made their first cocktail book called Harry's ABCs. And that's when the first time the French 75 is seen in print. Obviously they were English and they chose gin, which is fine, but it changed in one block from cognac to gin. The first time you read it, it's gin, lemon juice, sugar, and champagne. And so obviously we use cognac because the Count Arnaud drank cognac, and it's actually the origin of the cocktail.
Yeah, it's always bothered me that people come in and use gin, although as you indicated, that was one of the original iterations of the drink. But a drink called the French 75 with an English spirit just didn't strike me as going along.
Yeah, I mean, I was always curious. When I first started here, we were always told we were making it wrong. But then, after a little bit of research, actually a lot of research, just realized the story just got better and better and more in our favor.
Let's make one.
Want to try one?
Let's have a true French 75 from French 75 Bar with Chris Hanna.
All right.
How do we start?
First, we're going to do a 1/4 ounce of lemon juice. Fresh squeezed lemon juice. We're going to match that with a 1/4 ounce of simple syrup, sugar to water. And we're going to use a nice fine cognac. Here we're using Hennessy VS, do 1 1/4 ounces.
Does it help? I mean, you're using a VS. Does it help to use a VSOP or even an XO, or is that taking it too far?
VS and VSOP. XO, if you're just, having a good night, good moment, want to celebrate. I mean, VS is excellent. It's already perfectly aged, 4 to 6 years.
Right.
Yeah. Courvoisier, Hennessy, which Remy, VSOP.
My difficulty would be sipping too much before I made the drink.
Right. Yeah, I agree. That's where the XO stays. leave that on the back bar. Then we're going to shake this with ice.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
All right.
Absolutely. I'm being patient here. So this is a French 75 from the French 75 Bar. So it's going to be authentic and proper. And for those of you gin lovers out there, Chris doesn't have a discouraging word for you.
Not
it's
at
just
all.
he prefers cognac because of the Count.
That's true.
Lovely, lovely.
Count, history, the beautiful color here.
Oh, that is gorgeous.
Yeah,
We're not done yet, though, are we?
not yet. Now we're going to top it with a nice, equally fine champagne.
Oh,
Chill.
lovely.
We're going to break some lemon zest to put down some of the bubbles there. Then you top it one more time. Here we are, my friend.
That is so beautiful, Chris. A French 75 at the French 75 Bar. Chris, what is the second most popular drink in this bar?
Sazerac.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And are you an absinthe fan? Are you a cognac fan?
I am actually a rye and herb saint.
Okay.
But I mean, I do love the absinthe. When I use cognac, I use absinthe. When I use rye, I use herb saint. But because of the efforts that Legendre went through to make our herb saint, so we can keep touching our spirits with little pastis, I like to make sure that herb saint's not thrown under the bus, if you will.
I love herb saint. I think that's an excellent choice we have. A local spirit or a historic spirit. We get to do it that way. Chris Hanna, French 75 Bar and Arnaud's Restaurant. Appetite for Life. Thank you for being here. Chris, thank you, sir.
Cheers, my friend.
We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us this evening on Appetite for Life. If you would like to further enjoy past episodes, all of our previous broadcasts are online at WLAE.com, Appetite for Life. Have a most pleasant evening and never lose your appetite for life.
Additional support comes from locally inspired, nationally recognized Dickie Brennan Steakhouse, serving dinner daily and lunch on Fridays. Home of the Chateaubriand for two, Michael Haney oysters, and the house filet with cream spinach, Fontava potatoes, flash fried oysters, and Béarnaise sauce. More information can be found at DickieBrennanSteakhouse.com.